Yes, you read the title correctly. We're on to part 4 of this video series, which in a way is super sad. It just goes to show how many people really go missing and how many families are left to suffer. So please stay safe. Most of these individuals that I'm about to talk about had no clue what was going to happen to them. Hey everyone, what's up and welcome back to Most Amazing Top 10. I'm your host, Lindsay Ivan, and today I'm bringing you the top 10 scary times people disappeared part 4. Make sure to check out the other parts of this video series if you haven't already. Starting off this countdown, we have Brandon Swanson. On the night of May 13th, 2008, 19-year-old Minnesota student Brandon Swanson was on his way back home from a party. That's when he drove his car into a ditch. But Brandon was fine and called his family to come and get him. It was around 2 o'clock in the morning when his family headed out to the location where Brandon said that he was. But when they got there, Brandon and his car were nowhere to be found. They called Brandon and talked to him for 47 minutes while trying to locate his whereabouts. The call ended abruptly with Brandon saying, "Oh, shh," and his phone went dead. That was the last time Brandon was ever heard from. Now, his car was eventually located by police, but Brandon was never found. Police originally suspected that he fell into a river and then drowned. Well, police dogs did trace his scent to a river's edge, but then his scent continued on, leading them to believe that he did fall into the water, got out, and continued walking on. But his body was never found. Coming in at number 9, we have Alfred Beilharz. In 1938, while camping at Rocky Mountain National Park, 4-year-old Alfred Beilharz disappeared without a trace. Him and his family were out on a hike along Fall River. Alfred was trailing behind, and next thing you know, when their parents turned around, he was nowhere to be seen. The nearby creek had been drained and searched, but nothing came of this. Police dogs were called in, but had difficulty picking up his scent. Within 10 days, the search was called off. Now, there were a couple of reported sightings of Alfred. One couple believed that they saw him at a part on the trail called Devil's Nest, but when they saw him, he was jerked back out of sight, as if someone had pulled him back. So, was he kidnapped? We might never know. Making our way down the list to number 8, we have ADRIEN McNAUGHTON. On June 12, 1972, 5-year-old ADRIEN McNAUGHTON disappeared while out fishing with his family at Holmes Lake in Ontario, Canada. He was fishing for about an hour when he got his line tangled and he felt discouraged. He then sat down by a nearby rock and later went to play at the lakeshore, only a short distance away. That's where he was last seen. Now, years later, the lake was dragged several times. A rubber sole from a shoe was found that might have belonged to ADRIEN, and something that looks like a tooth was also found, but it was never confirmed that it was his. This case was actually featured in a podcast called Someone Knows Something. And it's true, someone out there knows what happened to poor young ADRIEN. Coming in at number 7, we have Tony Jones. The mysterious disappearance of Tony Jones continues to baffle the people of Perth, Australia. Tony was out on a 6-month hitchhiking trip around Australia. Towards the end of his journey, he planned to head home to Perth for Christmas. His plan was to meet his brother Tim in Mount Isa, but he never showed up. Now, he told his family that he was going to catch a ride along the Flinders Highway to get to his brother, but that highway has been dubbed the Highway of Death. No one has heard from Tony since. His brother is adamant that he was picked up by a group of people that then killed him and disposed of his body. However, this case still remains unsolved. In our 6th spot, we have Annie Lee. Annie Lee was a 24-year-old Yale student who mysteriously disappeared from the Yale campus in the morning of September 8th, 2009. She was last seen entering the research building on the New Haven campus at around 10 a.m., but the footage never showed her leaving the building. When she didn't return home, her housemates called the police. Now, she was missing for 6 days until her body was found on September 13th. Turns out that her lab assistant had murdered her in the lab, cut her body into pieces, and stuffed it into the gap between 2 walls in the basement lab. What's sad is that the day she was found was her wedding day. Her family and fiance were heartbroken. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with Michael DUNAHEE. Michael DUNAHEE was a 4-year-old Canadian boy that disappeared on March 24th, 1991 in British Columbia. Michael's mother was playing flag football with her team and his father was spectating. The park was filled with other spectators. His parents let him play at a playground that was only a couple meters away. When his dad went to go supervise him, Michael was gone. Now what's weird is that there were tons of people around and not one person saw anything. No one knows what happened to Michael. To this day, his disappearance is one of the largest police investigations in Canadian history. Coming in at number 4, we have EVELYN Hartley. This case seems like it came straight out of a horror movie. Basically, teenager EVELYN Hartley was at her professor's house babysitting his child on October 24th, 1953. At 8:30 p.m., she failed to check in with her parents as they agreed. When her father went over, he found that the house was completely locked, with all the lights on and the radio still on. The professor's child was sleeping and unharmed, but Evelyn was nowhere to be found. There were signs of struggle inside the house and pools of her blood. What's weird is that every room in the house was locked except for the basement. In the basement, the window had been opened and the screen was missing. There were footprints outside of the window. It looked like the kidnapper entered through that window and took Evelyn, who put up a big fight. Moving on to number 3, we have LARS MITTANK. If you are a mystery junkie, then chances are you have probably seen the weird and unexplainable CCTV footage from this case. The footage shows Lars running out of Varna Airport in Bulgaria, climbing over a fence and disappearing into the forest and never being seen again. The 28-year-old German was traveling with friends and was headed back home from his trip, but he was told that he wasn't able to fly because of his ruptured eardrum. His eardrum had been ruptured after getting into a bar fight during his trip. Now, no one knows why he fled the airport like that. He left behind his bags containing his wallet, passport, and phone. A couple days prior, he exhibited paranoid type behavior, as caught on the hotel's security cameras. He even phoned his mom and in a whisper told her that 4 men were coming to kill him and that she should cancel his credit cards. Now, some people think that Lars' behavior is a result from his ear injury, and maybe he even suffered from a brain injury as well. Also, the antibiotics that he was on may have had side effects that caused him to become more paranoid, whereas other people believe that he was a drug mule and wanted by criminals. But to this day, this case remains a huge, bizarre mystery. Moving on to number 2, we have the Beaumont children. The disappearance of the 3 young Beaumont children remains the longest running missing persons case in Australian history. On January 26, 1966, Jane, age 9, Grant, age 7, and Arna, age 4, boarded a bus and headed to the beach. During that time, Jane was considered old enough to care for her siblings, so they went off by themselves, which they had done many times before. However, that day, they never returned home. Witnesses say that the children did make it to the beach, but that they weren't alone. Apparently, there was a tall, blonde, thin-faced man there with them. Others say that it wasn't just the man, but there was actually 2 other individuals with them, another man and a woman in a pale blue patterned dress. The last apparent sighting was around 3 p.m. when the postman saw them walking the main road to their home, but they were apparently alone. Over the years, detectives have followed leads trying to find these children. They have done numerous excavations of different properties of suspects. However, none have been successful. So, where are these children? Is it possible that they're still alive out there somewhere, or have they been murdered? I wish I had the answers to these questions. And in our number 1 spot, we have Joan RISCH. Now, this case is truly bizarre, and that's why I put it on the number 1 spot. Joan RISCH, a 31-year-old mother of 2, went missing from her Boston home on October 24th, 1961. Her daughter was out playing at the neighbors. When she returned home, her brother was crying in his crib. Her mother was missing, and she told her neighbor that the kitchen was covered in red paint. This red paint being her mother's blood. But here's where it gets strange. Prior to her missing, Joan checked out several books from her library. All the books were about murders and disappearances. One, in fact, was about a woman who disappeared and left nothing but blood and a towel. So many think that she left her life to search for a new one, or that she was a victim of a kidnapping and murder. I don't know about you, but I'm getting Gone Girl vibes. And that's all for today's video. Let's move on to our comment shout-out portion. I'll be shouting out comments for my video, Top 10 Scary Public Service Announcements That Shook the World. Emma Roblox commented, "I'm early, yes, my 2nd time. I wish I get a shout-out. Heart. Hey, maybe I'll not get a shout out. I'll try. Smiley face. Well, there you go. There's your little shout out. Heart. Jack Lawyer commented, "You can hear the sadness in her voice." Well, it's true. Like, some of the things that I report on or I talk about are truly sad and upsetting, so it's hard. You kind of get attached to it. Eddie Forknight commented, how do the people who explain the story remember what to say? So I assume that you're talking about the house and how we deliver. Magic. No, I'm just kidding. Photographic memory. That's all I gotta say. And that's all the comments I'm shouting out for today's video. Make sure to comment something down below for a chance to be featured in my next comment shout out. And as always, don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to Most Amazing Top 10 for more amazing videos. I've been your host, Lindsay Ivan, and I'll see you when I see you.